Right, so come down, come to a seated position on your mat. So I have a block. I often have times where you might have an opportunity to use one block or two blocks, but it is totally optional, and anything can substitute for a block. Be a pillow, can sometimes be a water bottle as long as it's stable. Large books work well if you've got Harry Potter lying around. So go ahead and come to a seated cross-legged position. Because I have been trying to do a little bit more of an extended meditation at the end, if it's uncomfortable for you to sit, sometimes it helps to sit on a cushion to kind of elevate yourself. It helps drop your hips open. The pillows on our sofas work very well for that. So bring yourself to whatever comfortable seated position you would like, lotus or half lotus if that's your thing. And sit up nice and tall, letting your arms rest down in your lap. Let those shoulders roll down away from the ears, tuck the chin slightly back. And just take a moment to settle here. We'll start and end in this position, so it's nice to have sort of a cyclical nature to the practice. So take a moment now and just pass an inward glance over your body and notice how you're feeling. Inevitably, there's going to be some areas of tightness. There might be some areas of pain. Might be some areas where you're just sort of aware. Like it doesn't hurt, but you're like, yep, that's my knee. So just kind of notice that without judgment of it. And maybe pay attention to those areas throughout the practice, making sure you're giving them the love and attention they need, whether that means going deeper into a stretch, or just maybe not going as deep into a posture to take care. And bringing your attention to the breath, beginning to inhale through the nose and exhale through the nose, nice and gently, nice and regularly. Always, it can feel good to take a deep inhale, especially if you haven't done that in a while. Breathing in fully, exhaling fully. It's actually why we yawn, because we'll all tend to breathe pretty shallowly most of the time, and our bodies sometimes crave a full lung full of air. Sometimes it's nice to start your practice that way. And then as you sit in stillness, just simply inhaling and exhaling, watch your breath. Imagine you can see it as you draw it in through your nostrils. There's a left and a right side. In the yogic tradition, those are considered your pranic channels, and they are complementary, a positive and negative, heat and cool, energy and relaxation. So notice if you're breathing in one side more than the other. And then imagine you can watch that breath as it travels through your body, oxygenating your blood, bringing you energy, as well as relaxation. And if you'd like to set an intention for your practice, if you'd like to dedicate your practice, you can bring your mind to that. And whatever you do, just always coming back to this breath, inhaling and exhaling. Remembering that I'm just here as your guide. So always moving at your pace, breathing at your pace. And just say the words to gently remind you. And let's take a deep inhale, stretching your arms upwards. Interlace your fingers and stretch up high. And begin to flutter open your eyelids. Next time you exhale, bring those hands behind your body, pressing them into the floor or into the mat, pulling your shoulders gently back, tilting your gaze just up towards the ceiling, just a little bit of a heart opener. Maybe we'll do some more of these today, working on heart and chest and shoulders. And release that. My favorite series, inhaling up, exhaling, lateral bend. So left arm goes down and just let it slide out and be soft. If it bothers your shoulder to have the arm overhead, it can stay down by your side. This just deepens the stretch. And if you actively, like you're trying to reach for something over there with those fingertips, take a deep breath. You'll feel this side of your body really stretch. It's excellent to breathe when your lungs are compressed on one side or the other because it strengthens them. Whenever you next inhale, press yourself up, interlace those fingers again, stretch up and grow tall, 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 tall. Take an inhale, and when you next exhale, come on over to the other side, letting that arm slide out. You just want this arm to be soft because then you can melt into it. You don't want it to support you upright. You want your body to bend over. If you turn and look up towards the ceiling, sometimes that helps just keep your chest open so you're not rounding down. Good, and press yourself back up. Bring your feet sole to sole, sitting up nice and tall, letting your hips drop open. I like to use my arms to press down. For some of you, your hips will be so open you won't need to do that. Some people like to flutter like the wings of a butterfly. If that feels good, you can do that. And take a couple breaths in this Baddha Konasana. The hips can be an area that hold a lot of tension. So while on one hand there's muscle tightness and simply body shape that comes into play when it comes to your hips, if you pay attention to that area and really exhale and try to let go, sometimes you'll find that you're actually holding, you're actually resisting up. And if you just let go, maybe you can drop a little bit more down. You have more narrow hips. I have pretty narrow hips. It tends to make them a bit less open. That's why men tend to struggle more in this posture because they traditionally have more narrow hips relative to their body. Take a deep breath. Only point being is we are all only working with the body that we have. So you can sit there and get upset about it and wish you were more flexible like me in this posture, or just go, you know what? It is what it is, and I will just work with what I have. And from here, let's hinge forward, just release down. Go ahead and let the back round over. Let the head drop down. If it's uncomfortable and you're sort of like getting close to your feet, but your head isn't there, you can always take that block and just rest your head on it. Sometimes that just feels more relaxing. But equally, if you just want to exhale and feel yourself sink more deeply into it, sometimes that can be quite nice. Breathe into the back. Notice now as you take a deep inhale, you'll feel your ribs expand across your back body. Good, and bring that back up. Open the legs wide, toes towards the ceiling, kneecaps towards the ceiling, sitting up nice and tall. If your hamstrings are tight and your knees need to bend a little bit, that's okay. We're gonna hinge, so think about bending from your hips as you hinge forward, which for some people this is so easy and they just hit the floor, and for other people you're like, yep, nope, no further than this. Again, sometimes the block is helpful if you wanna put your forearms on it, because what we want to do is keep the spine really long. So as you're hinging forward, we're actually not rounding our spine in this posture. So if you were to get real flexible, eventually your abdomen would come to the mat, your chest and ribs would come to the mat, and then maybe your chin would come to the mat. Not me today. And then notice what your feet do. Mine automatically will roll in if I stop paying attention to them. So see if you can keep them pointing towards the ceiling rather than rolling in or rolling out. Take a couple of breaths. So your body is relatively cold right now, just in that you might be hot, but in that you've probably been still. So don't force any of these static stretches. Just release gently without overstretching, without overstraining. Good, let's bring the left foot in, push into the left hand and the right heel as we press up, opening up this hip flexor. Again, if you want, reach that arm overhead, gives you a nice big stretch through that hip. Take an inhale and an exhale. Think about breathing from fingertip to toe tip. I like to think of this as a good morning stretch. It feels like waking up. Next time you exhale, go ahead and release that back down. We're just going to switch sides. Go right onto the other side. Bring the opposite leg in. Pressing into that extended leg and the opposite hand. Press up. Again, focusing on this area of the hip. So you're really pushing that up Feel that stretch, and then when you reach your arm overhead, you should feel it nice stretch through that rib cage. Feeling it stretch. I almost feel like my skin is stretching as I take an inhale. Really reaching away. And come back down. And one more sitting posture before we change. I want you to cross your legs in the opposite way from what you normally do. If you already kind of switched them up, then just do the opposite of what you did a minute ago. But for most of us, we have a normal way that we cross our legs. So do the other, and then we're going to twist. So inhale, extend up. Again, if you want to interlace those fingers to get a nice tall stretch. And then as you exhale, twist. Place the hand behind your back, the opposite hand on the thigh, and use that hand on your thigh to turn your torso around. And think about pulling the back shoulder away from you to open your chest. Don't worry about turning your head around. You can kind of strain your neck if you do that. Just keep your head in neutral. We're not worried about the top part of our spine. We're really getting down to the lower part. Take a deep inhale there if you haven't already. As you exhale, see if you can release a little bit more into the twist. Make sure you're sitting nice and tall. Again, noticing that stretch through your ribs as you breathe, that expansion of your lungs. And next time you exhale, release that back to center. And final posture here, inhaling up, stretching, growing tall, and then exhale to this side. So without pushing on your knee, I like to put my hand on my thigh and just press against that thigh, using your muscle to help twist you around. The image of a washcloth to me being wrung out is what I like to think of here with our ribs, which isn't all that delicate, but it's like that spine is being twisted and wrung out of air, and that's stretching the muscles, building lung capacity. Good, and bring that back to center. Okay, coming onto hands and knees. Hands under shoulders, knees under hips for a couple of cow pats, warming up that spine. Taking your time, so again, matching your breath to movement, but your breath, not worrying about if you're matching my speed. Always starting with the base of the spine. As you press down, you're inhaling, hips are pressing down, chest is lifting forward, gaze is coming forward. And as you exhale, you're rounding, pulling the pelvis under, pulling the belly button up, and then dropping your gaze towards your belly button last. And from here, if you want to do any other movements, if you want to wag your tail, you can integrate a twist in this. An online teacher I had for yoga had a move called Beyonceasana, where it was a whole twisting, moving torso thingy. So, you do you to stretch that spine however you need to. Make sure you're nice and nimble. And then stretch back on your heels in child's pose when you're ready, stretching the arms forward, letting your head release down to the mat. Inhaling and exhaling. And bringing yourself back up. Coming into a modified plank from here. So the way I like to modify plank is to actually come into a full plank just for a moment and then drop the knees. So you're not in tabletop anymore. Your knees are further away from your hips. You're at an angle. You want to pull your belly button in to protect your low back. You could, of course, do full plank if you really wanted to here. I'm not going to stop you. But it should feel a bit easier to do this, but still working. So still contracting the glutes, looking out on the floor in front of you somewhere. So a few of our modified chaturangas. So really slowly. So if we're working on building strength, we want to do this more slowly. If this is hard, you can go more quickly. Really angling the chest towards the floor as the elbows hug the ribs and lower down. So it's an exaggerated chest and chin to the floor. The hips are still lifted. And then as the chest lifts up, the hips find the mat and we find cobra. Elbows down, shoulders back. And then push up and back, coming to child's pose. So trying to leave your hands and knees exactly where they are. They don't really need to move. Rising up into your modified plank, lowering down as you exhale, inhaling up to that cobra, exhaling back to child's pose. When you next inhale, rising up, modified plank. Exhale, modified chaturanga. Inhale up to cobra. Exhale, pressing back, just flowing at your own pace, doing one more. When you finish this last one, find yourself in child's pose and pause there for a moment. And then rise back up to that modified plank. Try not to lock the elbows. That's something that I often see in myself. My elbows lock out. It's just what they naturally want to do. So I have to bring my mind there, rotate them inwards so the elbows are facing one another, and try to not lock them out. Pivot into a modified side plank. I'm going to come to my left knee first. You decide which one you want to do first. Modified side plank, reaching the opposite arm up, giving yourself a stretch, growing tall, and then bringing it over your head, stretching away. Lift that leg, so now you're in a long line from your heel out through your fingertips. Holding here, taking a breath. If this is too much, you could lower the leg down. We're working our abs a little bit here. Optional stretch here, bending that foot back, catching it in your hand. So trying to not arch the back too much here, which is easily done. You could easily sort of come into a, I don't know what this would be, it's like dancer on the floor. But instead, think about, again, the front of the thigh here, the hip flexor and the quadricep area, and see if you can find the stretch there. So if it's kicking into your hand a little bit, but keeping your knee in line with your hip. Good, and then release that. Stretch out long one more time. And then come on over, back into the modified plank. And we're gonna lower all the way down to the mat. Inhale, sliding your hands out, finding Sphinx for a moment. Shoulders down and back, chest lifted. We're just gonna do a little bit of neck stretching here. So dropping the chin towards the chest, holding it there for a breath, feeling that stretch. Lifting your head up without thrusting it back, so it's just slightly more than looking forward, not a big throwing your head back. And then one more time, dropping the chin towards the chest. And back up. And then turn your head side to side, so you're just turning and looking over one shoulder, turning and looking over the other shoulder. And lower that back down to the mat. Push into your palms, press back up, find that modified plank. And then transitioning to the other side, so pivoting whatever knee side you didn't do last time, go ahead and pivot to that. So for me, I'm on my right leg. Left arm is extended. Reach that left arm overhead. And then see if you can lift that top leg. Taking a deep breath here. And then option here to bend the knee, catch the foot in the hand. Again, trying to keep knee in line with hip, so you're not kicking the leg back behind your body. Instead, kicking the foot into the hand and seeing if you can feel that stretch of the hip flexor, the quadricep, the whole front part of the body. Breathing into that. Good, releasing that down, coming back into the modified plank. Lowering down, chest, chin, and hips. Good, bringing the arms out to that cactus position, lifting up the chest, squeezing the shoulder blades together, and then lifting the legs off the floor. Holding here, pulling the belly button in, contracting the gluteal muscles. Think of squeezing the legs together. They do tend to like to separate, so you can keep them together. Lifting up into that. And releasing that down, pressing into the hands, curl the toes under this time. Push yourself up and back, finding puppy posture. So really lengthening the spine, stretching out the shoulders. Good, and then come up, option to just come to all fours if down dog is not appropriate. Otherwise, pushing up, finding down dog. Jogging through, bending one knee, bending the other knee, stretching the opposite foot towards the floor. Extend the right leg high overhead in a three-legged down dog. If you're on all fours, you're just staying right there. And then let's step this right foot forward, coming to a lunge and then releasing the back knee onto the mat. Coming up, bringing hands behind that knee. So one of the best hip opening, hip flexor stretches. So the key here is to think about driving forwards while still lifting up. So that's why if you're able, if you want to extend the arms, it gives you that sensation of lifting up while driving forward, but without sinking and dropping into the hips, which I know is a lot. It's weird because you are going down, but it's more pushing forward, lengthening up, opening through the chest. Bringing the hands behind your back, if you want, is another nice way to get into the chest. Maybe bring the gaze up towards the ceiling, pulling the shoulder blades together. And then releasing out of that, hinging back into our half splits, flexing that right foot, releasing the head down. If this is uncomfortable, sometimes 2 blocks can help here. So you would put 1 block on either side of your leg, and sometimes being elevated like that is really helpful. Be aware of your knee. If you're like me and it hyperextends, just try not to let that happen. So a tiny bend might be helpful. Otherwise, you're flexing that foot, trying to get a nice deep hamstring stretch, sitting back towards the hips. Then go ahead and bring yourself up. We're going to come to a twist here. So option to come up on this back leg. If that doesn't work for you, you can always just stay down on the knee. That's fine. Bringing hands to heart as we come up, and now we're bringing the left elbow either to the top of the thigh or binding against the thigh. See if you can keep the hands at the heart. They have a tendency to migrate to the armpit. And again, if you're wobbling, if this isn't working, you simply drop the back knee. And then you'll be more stable. Your option. The other thing you could do is prop your hand on the floor. That will help stabilize you, but notice you're still getting the twist. Deep breath in. Breathing into that twist. Again, releasing that. Coming into that long lunge. Step back into plank and press up into down dog. Or again, you could drop to knees and come to all fours as an alternative. Extend the left leg high overhead. Bring that left leg forward, plant it down, scooch it all the way forward so knee is over ankle, and then release the back knee onto the mat, rising up, hands behind the knee, never on the knee, and once again, think about driving forward. We're working on this area again still, the hip flexor. And again, if you're stable and you like, extending the arms up overhead. This just gives you that sense of growing tall through the spine, bringing the gaze up, lifting while still driving forward. So many yoga postures work in opposition to really give you a nice stretch. If you want to deepen that, bringing the hands behind the back, clasping them together, pulling the shoulders back, taking a breath into this. And then releasing that, stretching back into our half splits. Left heel driving into the mat, releasing the gaze down, pulling the hips back. Modifying this as you need. You can be straightening the front leg. You could have your hands on blocks. You could not be sitting so far back in your hips. You decide what gives you the stretch that you need safely. And when you're ready, come on back up. Option again to stay with this back knee on the mat or prop yourself up on your back foot. We're going to twist to the other side. So hand comes to heart, elbow either comes on top of the thigh or binds against the thigh. As we turn and look over the left shoulder, hands at heart center. Again, if you're wobbling but want to stay up, you can prop that right hand down like a kickstand. That right arm should be helping you twist more deeply into this. Good, and then release that, hands find the mat. This time stepping the right foot forward, folding over, rounding the spine over. A little bit of a bend in the knee here, so you're rounding the spine. Taking a breath. Dropping the hips and then rolling up, restacking one vertebra at a time. Inhale, big extension up. Exhale, bringing the arms down, finding Tadasana. So our shoulders are rolled back, palms facing forward. The reason to turn the palms forward, you'll notice, is it just automatically makes your shoulders and chest tend to open up. So it's always optional, but that's why we do it. And then see if you can think about that neutral spine so you're not tilting the pelvis downwards or up. It's right there in neutral. And even though our chest is lifted, our shoulders back, we're not sticking out our chest and overly arching. It's finding a neutral position. Take a deep inhale, extending the arms upwards. Exhale, bring your hands to heart center. Let's just drop into one chair from here. So pushing the hips back, arms can extend out or hands can come to heart center. So heart center is more modified. It's going to be more challenging to have the arms extended. Either way, belly is in, trying to create a long spine rather than sticking our butts out and having a curve in our spine. Sitting as low as you want, but trying to keep knees over ankles rather than tracking forward over your toes. And just hold for a moment. And then pressing into the feet to bring yourself back up to standing. Take an inhale. As you exhale, let's step the right foot back. Finding warrior one. So the right foot is going to pivot at an angle. Left knee is going to be bent, but we really want to bring our hips forward. So the warrior poses, there's a real focus on the position of the hips. This is inwardly rotating, so think of your headlights facing forward. Take an inhale, arms come up, opening chest and shoulders. And next time you exhale, hands behind the back, clasping them together, pulling the shoulders together, and then folding forward in humble warrior, letting those arms reach overhead. Never forcing them, never bouncing them, just letting gravity gently draw them downwards. I'm going to be gentle on those shoulders. And then pulling back with the arms to bring yourself back to a standing position. Inhale, arms extend up, shoulders down and back, chest lifting towards the sky. And then opening this out to warrior two. So for me, I always bend that front knee a bit more deeply when I come into warrior two. Back foot doesn't really move. And now the hips are outwardly rotated. Shoulders pulling towards one another, arms shooting away. Think about pressing into the pinky edge of that back foot so you're not collapsing into that knee. And the gaze is out over the front hand. Deep inhalation. And again, notice what this knee is doing. Is it collapsing inwards? Is it rolling outwards? Trying to keep it right in line with your hip, in line with your ankle. And then extending that leg, coming into Trikonasana. I always need to bring my feet a little closer together. You may or may not feel like you need to do that. We're going to hinge forward. Think of leaning, leaning, leaning as much as you can forward. Then let that bottom arm drop. This is another great opportunity for a block. Hand can find the block. Opposite hand comes up in the air, turning the gaze up. So don't worry about touching the floor, and I don't like hands on shin because you tend to put pressure on your knee. If you want, the arm can just hang free. That's great for your abs. It's a little bit easier to be supported by a block. Take a breath here, pulling the ribs in, lengthening through the spine. Good, and then press yourself up, reverse that. So right hand comes behind the back, front palm flips up, bringing it up, bringing the gaze towards the sky. Deep inhale, breathing into the rib cage. Good, and bring yourself up, turning your feet, walking them in a little bit, and then let's turn them out. So heels are in, toes are out. Again, it depends on your hip openness, how much you turn them out, you decide. And sitting down into Goddess. So think about standing tall while we're pressing our knees away, pulling the pelvis under, Pick whatever arm position you want. If you want hands at heart center, classic goddess poses here. If you want hands on hips, you decide where you are most supported. What's really important is that you're sitting back. Make sure you can wiggle toes. This is a really challenging posture, and it's very easy to sit forward, and that puts a lot of pressure on your knees. And you don't have to go deep. Some people want to go really, really, really deep. Some people want to be more lifted. Does not matter. And then press into the feet, rising up, extend the arms up. Now turn the feet parallel, hinging forward, long flat back to release yourself down. Head drawing towards the mat. Take a couple of breaths here. And then turn back to the front of your mat. Pivot the feet towards the front of the mat. You can bend your front knee as much as you need to. Find the floor with your hands and then step that back foot back, finding plank, and then pushing up either to down dog, or you can go to that all fours position. And extend the right leg up, dropping the right knee, or the right foot rather, towards the opposite side, lifting the right knee, stacking right hip on left. Option here to make circles with the hip, really big open circles. If that doesn't work for you, you can just stay still. You can go either direction, you can go both directions. You can go neither direction. And then come back to center. We're going to come to pigeon. So you're going to hinge forward with that right leg and then bring it across the body and then lower yourself down onto the mat. If this doesn't work for you, come onto your back and do a figure four with your right leg crossed across your left. If you're here, you're extending the left leg behind. And careful not to just kind of roll and plop onto your glute here. It can be helpful to put a block under you to support you. Sit up nice and tall, shoulders pulling back, chest opening, maybe bringing the gaze up towards the ceiling as you lift. Proud pigeon, I like to think of this. And then if you'd like, you can take this down, folding forward. Again, maybe your head finds the block. Maybe you bring your head to the mat. There's binds here. You could stretch your arms overhead. You can bring one hand behind your back. You decide where you're comfortable. The focus is on your hip. And if this is bothering your right knee, then just come out of it, come onto your back, and come to that figure four on your back. And we'll just hold this for about 3 breaths or so. And then bringing the hands back, pressing yourself up. Bring the right knee back and you'll find yourself once again in a modified plank. And go ahead and lower yourself all the way down into the mat. This time extend your arms long in front of you, lift the chest and shoulders, and then lift the legs off the mat. If this is too much, legs can just come right back down on the mat and you can bring your arms down by your side to modify. Take an inhale. See if you can lift a little higher and release that down. Slide your hands back. Push yourself up through modified plank to your downward facing dog or to all fours if you prefer. Pressing hands into the mat if you're in down dog, rolling shoulders away from the ears. Think of lifting the hips towards the sky rather than pressing the chest towards the legs. Take a deep breath. And then step your left foot forward, followed by your right. Forward fold, letting the knees bend. Rolling up, restacking, one vertebra on top of the next. Deep inhalation as you come to standing, and exhale. I'm just going to switch so I'm at the other end of the mat so that my back isn't to you as we do the second side. Once again, coming to one chair posture, sitting down and back. Checking that the knees are over the ankles, pulling the hips back. Arms extended forward at the heart. And then squeezing up to stand. Inhale and exhale, this time stepping your left foot back and finding warrior one on this side. Hips facing forward, chest facing forward, gaze facing forward. Pressing into the pinky edge of your back foot. So you're only going to go really deep in this front knee if your hips are really open, and you can do that and stay oriented forward. I can't, so I do less of a deep bend. Inhale, extending the arms up, opening the chest back, lifting towards the sky, and then bringing the hands behind the back, clasping them together. Forward fold into your humble warrior. And next time you inhale, rising back up, extending the arms up overhead, and then as you exhale, transition this, Virabhadrasana 2. Shoulders pulling together, outward rotation of the hips. So in Warrior 1, that left hip was rotated inwardly. In Warrior 2, it's rotated outwardly. Gazing out over that front hand, still pressing into the pinky edge of the back foot. So the warriors are considered hip openers because we're actively trying to open those hips. And then we're going to extend the front leg, coming into Trikonasana. So hinging forward, 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 reaching as much as you can, letting that arm go, and then the opposite arm coming up. Chest is really open. You could definitely be like pressed between two panes of glass here. There's no rounding. Spine is just hinged over. Hand could come to the floor, hand can come to a block, or hand can be free. For most of us, it can't come to the floor. I've got really long arms, and even when I come to the floor, I lose the alignment in my torso. So I'm going to be about here. Rising up, left hand behind the back, right palm flips, opening it up. Breathing into the right ribs. Good, and press yourself back up. Pivot around to the front again, walk the feet a little bit closer together. We're gonna forward fold here and then just hinge side to side. So your toes are still pointed slightly outwards, and we're just hinging, deep bend coming into a lunge on either side. And then pause at whatever side you want. It's not quite crouching tiger, it's just a lunge here. Up and over, pausing at the other side, feeling that stretch through the inner thigh. And coming back to center, turning the toes parallel, once again, letting the head go. Bringing hands to hips and press yourself up to flat back. Belly pulling in, pressing into all four corners of your feet. Release the arms, inhale, stretching all the way up to the top. Pivoting back to the front of the mat, bending your knees as much as possible so you can place the hands on the mat, coming to a lunge. Step that right foot back and then press up into your downward facing dog. Again, rolling shoulders away from ears, and again, modify this if you need by simply coming to all fours. From here, extend the left leg up, bend the left knee, drop that foot towards the opposite side, and then option to make hip circles here, moving the leg in either or both directions. You can actually do this as well if you're on the floor. You can make hip circles from all fours. A few times if that feels good. And then work your way back to center, bring that leg forward, coming into pigeon on this side. And as always, remember, if you don't enjoy pigeon, roll over onto your back and go ahead and come to figure four. So this time you'll cross your left ankle across your right thigh. And take a breath. So again, without sinking down into this side, if you wanted, you could take the block to support you. A lot of people find that's quite comfortable. Trying to square the hips, keeping them forward, chest lifted, shoulders rolling down and back, reaching that leg back behind. Taking a moment here, upright, proud pigeon, I like to say. And then if you want, you can go ahead and release that forward, Finding whatever position is comfortable for you down here on the mat. And just holding here, releasing into that hip. Trying to let go of any emotional, mental tension you're holding, as well as physical tension by just exhaling and sinking into the posture. Breathing deeply. And then go ahead and press yourself back up. Push off so you can bring this left foot behind, coming to that modified plank, and then lower down, chest, chin, and hips all the way to the floor. Okay, so option here to come into a more intermediate posture, but we've been doing a fair amount of opening the hips as well as the back. So option to come into bow pose. So bringing the legs up, reaching the hands back. You might just be right here, and that's absolutely fine. If you can lift that chest higher, and if you can grab feet or ankles, you may do so, and then you might just stay right here. If you want, you can lift those legs off the mat, lift the chest up higher, pull the shoulders back. So anywhere along that spectrum is absolutely fine. Take a deep breath. And next time you exhale, release it down, push into your hands, sit up and back, coming to child's pose. Sitting back on your heels. And go ahead and bring yourself up, spinning the legs around, bending the knees, holding onto the backs of your thighs to lower yourself down onto the mat and draw those knees into your chest. Make sure you have some space on either side of you, and then let the knees drop down to either side. And this is going to be more about a stretch than it is about your abdominal strength. So often we bring the legs up as a unit. This time the top leg is going to lead, and it's going to go over, and then the bottom leg is going to follow, and you're going to roll to the other side. And then again, top leg is going to come up, bottom leg is going to follow. So you shouldn't be feeling this in your abs so much, and you shouldn't be feeling any strain in your low back. You can open your legs as wide as you want before the other leg goes, or they can stay closer together. Inhaling and exhaling as you twist. If you want, your head can move from side to side, so it goes one way, and it goes the opposite way. And just do one more each direction, finishing so that you're even. And then again, bring yourself back to center, hugging knees into your chest. Bringing the feet to the floor, fairly close to the body. Thighs parallel, engage so the knees don't knock in or out. Press into the floor, tilt the pelvis so you just sort of feel the gluteals contract and the pelvis lifts a tiny bit. Lift the pelvis a little bit more so you're kind of hovering off the mat here. Lift the pelvis a little bit more, the hips are pressing up. And press up a little bit more, continuing just to breathe. And then all the way up, and if you want, bringing the hands under the body, clasping them together like we've done a bunch of times, coming up to your highest level. So you do not need to come this high, you can come anywhere in between. And another fun thing to do with the block can go on you. This would be at its highest point, which is not accessible to everybody, but it could come down here at a lower level as well. So we're going to stay here for a moment. So if you're self-supported, meaning not using the block, just make sure your knees aren't flaring outwards or flopping inwards. Push through the hips. Got to contract the glutes a bit here. And go ahead and lower that down slowly, slowly, slowly. Removing the block if you had it, one vertebra at a time onto the mat. Extend the left leg long, hug the right knee into the chest. Next time you exhale, bring that right knee across the body, now coming to a static twist. If the leg is hovering up in the air, you could put it on a block to catch it at whatever level. You can take the same hand, the left hand, put it on the thigh. I like to bring my opposite arm to cactus to continue opening the shoulder, and then turning and looking over the right side. Deep breath into this twist. I know there are some postures, some of you are like, we literally do these every single time, but the reality is we don't do them in our daily life. So this is like the only time to do them, and twists in particular are super important for your spine health and for your lung health. Good, bring yourself back to center. Let's do a figure 4 while we're down here, crossing that, bring the left leg up, crossing the right leg over it, and just hang out here for a moment, pushing that right knee away from your body, opening through the hip, belly button drawing in, pushing your back into the mat, shoulders down and back, palms pressing into the mat. So modification of what we normally do here. Taking a breath. Using your own body's strength to create that openness. And then release out of that, extend the right leg long, hug the left knee into the chest, take an inhale. And then as you exhale, bring it across the body, moving that block over if you need to, putting the left leg on the block. Cactusing the left arm or extending it long, you decide. I just like the openness of the cactus posture. It feels nice on the shoulders. Breathing into this twist. Noticing if it feels different. And then rolling that back to center, bending the right knee, centering yourself on the mat, crossing the left leg over, palms on the mat, shoulders rolling down and away. Push the left knee away from your body. So I tend to lean to that left side, or whatever side the knee is bent. Notice if you do that. See if you can square yourself off, rooted to the floor here. Everything is stuck, not moving, and that gives this knee the only opportunity to move. Everything else is glued. Take a couple of breaths. And releasing that, hug the knees into the chest. So we'll end with a short inversion. So again, options. You come back to that bridge pose we did a moment ago, with or without the block. You could come with your legs or your hips under the block with your legs lifted. If you haven't got a block or a pillow, just put your hands here under your sacrum basically and extend your legs. We won't stay here forever because you will find that this starts working you more than if you had a block under you. When you have a block under you, you're supported and you don't have to work quite so hard. And just point and flex your feet a couple of times. If there's anyone pregnant watching this post live, you don't want to be doing this pregnant. So you could come just to a fetal position as we wind down. And if you want, you can open those legs if you want to get a nice inner thigh stretch. Rolling the ankles. Squeezing them back together. And stretching one foot to the floor and the other foot to the floor. Take a deep stretch. Arms overhead, legs down below. Reaching, 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 reaching. And then bring the legs into you one last time for happy baby. Grabbing hold of ankles or feet. Pressing the arms into the thighs to open up. And then bring the soles of your feet together. Lower your feet onto the mat. So Supta Baddha Konasana, supine butterfly. Let those knees drop. Once again, opportunity for block. Sometimes this is uncomfortable to have the knees hovering like this. So if it is, you just stick a block under there to support. And then you'll find as they drop, you can move the block away. And again, a couch cushion works great for this. Stack of books. And then if you'd like, bring one hand to the heart, one hand to the abdomen as you let the shoulders and elbows release, chin towards chest. Close your eyes and bring your attention to a breath. Working on a long, deep breath. So noticing as you inhale, you'll feel the hand on your abdomen rise. You'll feel the hand on your chest rise as your ribs expand. And then as you exhale, feel the hand on your abdomen fall. Feel the hand on your chest fall. So maybe think of this as a breath in fours. See if you can inhale for a 4 count. Pause for a 4 count, holding that breath. Exhale for a 4 count. And then see if you can hold that for a 4 count. And if you have any reason why you shouldn't retain breath like that, then just skip the retention and just simply inhale for 4 and exhale for 4. Noticing your heartbeat under the hand on your chest. With these long, slow breaths, hopefully your heart rate starts to slow, to stabilize. And then when you're ready, finding your final savasana, so bring your arms down by your side. If you want to stay there, you can. Otherwise, extending the legs long, letting the feet drop out. Letting the hips roll open, palms down, shoulders back. And if your mind needs a place to go, let it just find your breath. You can inhale and exhale and count 1. Inhale and exhale. And count 2. And anytime your mind starts to drift to thought, just bring it back to your breath. Every exhalation, feel yourself sink a little bit more deeply. Notice those areas where you felt muscle tension before. Breathe energy into them, and as you exhale, let them go. Let them be supported by the weight, by the gravity, and by the earth under you. The weight of your body just bringing you down, heavy. Those muscles don't need to work at all. Inhale, relaxation, and exhale, just let them go. Allowing your eyes to focus on the backs of your eyelids. Inhaling and exhaling. Anytime the mind wanders, just gently invite it back. Watch the breath and let it go. And then once again, allowing the breath to deepen. Imagine you can breathe all the way down to your fingers and toes. Once again, imagine you can watch that oxygen traveling throughout your body, recharging your muscles, revitalizing your cells, refreshing your whole being. And begin to move gently, wiggling fingers and wiggling toes, rolling the wrists and rolling the ankles, rolling your head from side to side. And then when you're ready, drawing your knees towards your body, giving yourself a hug, and then falling over to whatever side seems natural into the fetal position. And taking a moment there. It's important to come up slowly when you've been lying there, so that's why we pause here, give the heart a moment to adjust. And then gently pressing yourself up, finding yourself in that same seated position we did at the beginning of practice. So if you need to grab a cushion again or whatever you need to make yourself comfortable. And then find yourself again, eyes closed, arms draped gently in your lap. Once again, steadying the breath, maybe counting as you inhale and exhale. And today for the meditation, I'm taking a cue from my daily meditation this morning, which is to think about gratitude. Sometimes, especially when things are difficult, especially if work is stressful, with everything going on in the world, it's sometimes hard to forget that we all have things that we can be grateful for. So as you sit here for a moment, allow your mind to come to those things in your life for which you're grateful. Maybe there's only one thing you can think of right now. See if you can come up with 3 or 4 or 5 things that you're grateful for. And pause and think on them for a moment. And allow that sensation of gratitude, of thankfulness, of graciousness to wash over your body. And let those feelings of gratitude overpower any of the negative feelings that you have, and let those just wash away. Let the gratitude wash over you like a wave, and as it pulls away, it takes away any of the negative thoughts, any of the more toxic thoughts that aren't serving you. Just pause for a moment and think about that for which you're grateful. As you inhale, imagine that wave of gratitude for that one thing that you're grateful for. As you exhale, let it wash away something that you don't need. The mind trips away to other things, just bring it back. Gently coax it back. feeling of thanks. Take one final inhale. Imagine that feeling of gratitude washing one more time over your whole body, and then let it go. And bring your palms together and actually rub them together, generating heat between your hands. And then bring the palms to your face, cupping your hands over your eyes. And feel that warmth and that air surrounding your eyes. And then gently flutter your eyelids open, letting them adjust to the light. And then release the hands down. Namaste.